Hello, women's wellness community. I am your host, Lucy Coutinho, joined by my lovely co host, Nahal Horn. We hold this space for us to share out our personal transformation while we hold our hands through the journey. And this is also a space where we amplify voices of women everywhere. So today we do have a very, very special guest. She is amazing. Her name is NeferKa, better known as Nef, a farmer and a multi-dimensional healing artist, a spiritual warrior, educator, system architect, and a sacred wisdom keeper. She is a Kemetic, ancient Egyptian high priestess who has focused the past decade in her holistic healing practice on transforming sexual trauma and healing.
Mm.
And so today's topic will be sexual trauma and how we heal from it. Um, so it will feel a little heavy. We do anticipate that. But the objective of this conversation is to find healing and processing through it all. Welcome, Neff. How are you feeling today?
Thank you. First of all, I just want to thank you both so much for inviting me, for opening your platform and giving me the opportunity to share my voice, to share my wisdom and my story, which is ours. Recognizing that there is just one womb, right? One collective womb, including our brothers. And I think it's very beautiful what you're doing with this space. And I'm just honored to be here and to have been invited. So thank you. I'm feeling great today. I've had all my beautiful rising rituals and I feel really anchored and grounded. So I'm feeling great. How are you?
Good. I'm feeling good too. And we, like you, feel honored to have you share this space with us.
Mm-hmm.
I've been following your incredible journey and your work. It's so needed and appreciated. And I felt like we needed to share that out with our community as well. So thank you. And I'm doing well. I'm rejuvenated, energized, and I'm ready. I'm ready to dive all the way in. How are you
Hey,
feeling, Nahal?
I am with you. Let's dive in.
Let's dive in. Okay, so I do want to start with this. What motivated this work, this sexual trauma and healing work for you? Was it a personal quest?
Yes. So for me, it just unfolded through life. I have the awareness that I have right now of what all I'm carrying in this body is not one that I was born with. Some people say like we're all born with this amnesia, and technically not every person, some people are born into shamanic traditions and they already have their awareness and they're nurtured in that. And for me, that wasn't the case. I do still hold the knowing that we as a soul, we choose how we incarnate and what opportunities that we align so that we can do and offer to this collective tapestry what we're here to offer. So I feel very strongly that on a soul level, that I chose to come into a vessel that was going to experience significant childhood trauma that was going to cultivate me and allow me the opportunity to experience my own personal healing and transformation process so that I could use that to create what I call medicines, but they are technically systems, healing systems, and models and methodologies to guide people into themselves so that they can go through their own healing process. So, all of the medicines that I've been able to birth have been from my experience of healing my own womb space. So, it's been a calling. And at one point, it was very unconscious. And I appreciate that aspect of it because the womb is unconscious. It's the cosmic darkness. It's the space, right? The dark matter that encompasses most of our experience. And just that piece that comes and sprouts out of that ground and into the surface is only possible because of all of that unconscious matter. So in that space where I move through part of my life just expressing out and responding to that trauma unconsciously was also really important for me to collect emotional data to be able to utilize that to support others in healing. So, very personal experiences led me to this path.
I
I
love.
I love all of the things that you included, like the womb, what we experienced there that we're unconscious of, that we later have to experience in some way. Um, there's so many questions I have, but just to crystallize it, you mentioned medicine. I suspect that means like healing modalities. Are there certain healing modalities or medicine that you recommend or that you personally have found the most benefit from?
Yeah, well, there's so many.
Yeah.
There's so many. I think for me, I can express the ones that I have aligned with.
Hmm.
But I also think there's so many. It's one, to me, it's one thing where all that healing is like, it's wholeness, right? It's like us putting the pieces of ourselves together.
Hmm.
And I want to put that, hold on. I want to put that in the context of our the cycle that we're in right now, like humanity, the planet, is
Hmm.
what would be characterized as a degenerate cycle, right? Everything in nature grows and spirals and moves through cycles. And unfortunately, we've been programmed to think that things are supposed to grow linearly. We've been given the theory of evolution. And
Hmm.
one of the things that's most important to me as a revolutionary is to remind us that revolution is innate, right?
Hmm.
Revolution is literally, we're on our planet, we're part of this planet, we're part of the earth, the Geb, and we're constantly revolving around our planet, and we're spiraling through space because around our sun, and in our solar system everything is moving through the
Hmm.
universe and through the cosmos. So we're constantly spiraling. So it's natural for us to have a downward portion of the spiral and have to come back around. Where we are currently on the planet, we're experiencing a degenerate cycle where we're at the bottom and we have to work our way back around. And that process of the devolution is important also. And in our ancient African tradition, we see that as a separation process, which is characterized by an energy called Set. And Set is where, in many of the traditions that we have now, a lot of people are familiar with Set in the Christian expression, which is known as Satan, which literally comes from the word Set, Satesh. So it's an energy in ancient African tradition, in the Kemetic philosophy or science. The energy of Set is literally just a force of nature. It's gravity. It's also separation and distinction. And it's not inherently evil or bad. However, that's kind of how we judge it because of the way that we're oriented to it. So, all of the challenges and the things that we experience are a part of that. So, for me, it's important to put that into the context of where we are right now. So, recognizing everything that takes us in that direction of our growth, of our healing to spiral back up and to learn from this cycle on the planet is going to support that process. So people can experience it in so many different ways and we can distinguish it as different things, but it's one thing that we're
Hmm.
moving. For me, I've experienced a lot of mental, psychological medicine. And for me, it's simple things. We really don't need much externally because
Hmm.
the journey to healing is to go inside. So modalities that work for me, because I have a lot of air in my energy, are mental. So journaling has been very,
Oh,
very pivotal for me.
I love it.
I also love sound healing, using the crystal sound bowls, using drumming, using any of the instruments that we have to create sound, our voice, right? So for me, again, my energy signature has a lot of Gemini, which is Tehuti energy in our ancient tradition. Gemini is the throat, it's expression, it's also connection, it's the mind, the double hemisphere of the brain.
Yeah,
So
duality.
I've also tried methods that are more unique to certain indigenous traditions, such as a healing tradition from the Aboriginals in Australia, and that's called holographic kinetics. So that's their dreamtime healing. So I would love to shout out my sister, Kepra Ma'at Heteru, who is a divine healing ally. She's been a huge support on my journey.
Wow.
And she had studied for months with the Aborigines in Australia, and she learned this tradition of holographic kinetics, this ancient dreamtime healing. That was really pivotal for me in my healing journey. It allowed me to remember, really like retrieve really repressed memories from my childhood. Most notably for me was the murder of my grandfather. When I was 4 years old, my grandfather was murdered in front of me,
Mm,
and my 4-year-old mind had suppressed it so deeply that I didn't allow myself to remember it.
mm,
So that healing modality for me was very, very powerful. I don't know if there are many practitioners of the tradition, but that for me personally was really, really powerful. But I
mm,
think it's very similar to some practices that are people may be familiar with, like hypnosis.
mm. Or regression.
Yeah. I think also doing a lot of somatic work, which is really popular right now. People coming into the body. Yoga has been a huge. I've been doing yoga for a decade. I began with yoga, and then I learned about the ancient origins of yoga, which we call Smai Tawi,
Hmm.
the union of the two regions, which is similar to the Hindu interpretation of yoga, and just merging the spirit and the body. So, those are some of the healing practices that have been helpful for me. But my practices that I've been able to cultivate in birth have
Hmm.
been what I consider to be psycho spiritual medicines that
Cool.
focus on allowing us to manage our energy and
Yeah.
honor the very intellectual, like left, like very linear part of our brain that we're almost entrapped in right now, which tends to strain our intuitive intelligence.
Mm.
So because that's just how I was born with this very mental energy, I use that to find ways to support us with mental illness
Mm.
and the ability to recognize the power of our mind and our thoughts and use that to actually merge with the heart. So
Mm.
it's not just the brain, it's a synergy between the two. I hope
Wow.
that answered your question because I feel like I went around the world.
That sparked so many more questions, but I'm gonna let
Yeah.
Lucy continue because I'm like, we'll have to have a part two.
Yeah, that definitely did. So what I heard mostly is sound healing, right? Using sound as one of like the powerful healing modality.
Mhm.
Yoga, which is connecting the mind, body, and spirit, reconnecting all of that. Um,
Journaling.
and journaling, of course, we know how we feel about that. So okay, all right, processing, that was beautiful information, thank you so much. So what are some of the challenges that you face or may face in offering these different healing modalities with your clients, or if any, or how is it received?
Hmm. Well, I I would say that the challenge for me has actually been making it a business, I guess. Like having clients. It's for me, people come into my life like life aligns things. And the stage that I'm in right now in my journey is actually embracing this as like what I'm here to offer the world and that I should be valued for it. So for me, that would be the only challenge that I've had is like, how do I charge people for this?
Mhm.
And, but that's been a part of my journey, like it's a personal part of my journey that I am, you know, learning from
Mhm.
because I've even in the community service work that I've done over the past 9 years, I used to want to do everything for free because I want it to be accessible. And then just recognizing like we live in a world of reciprocity and there has to be energetic exchange and recognizing, above all, every what goes around comes around and you'll always receive what you've given, but being able to like really condense that into a practice with clients. But I haven't had any challenges of actually working through the healing process because it is so graceful and it's very organic. The way people come to me, I don't
Mhm.
think people, it's not something that I can really sell someone on. They just have to be ready, and their life guides them to what they need ultimately. So, yeah, I haven't really had any challenges with people going through. I mean, there's challenges when people want to retreat
Oh,
or pull back, but that's natural because I always remind people, like, again, grace is the most important thing
Mhm.
because we're not in a linear world. We contract and we expand, and that's how we grow. So allowing people to go through their spiral and know when they're good on their own, because I'm really just guiding them into themselves.
right.
Um, and it's more of a constant reminder of like the reflection that I am. It's not
Yeah.
anything I'm giving them other than reminding them of what they have and allowing them to retrieve it.
Yes, on their
Like
own.
a guide. Like
Yeah,
literally.
exactly.
I always love that.
Other modalities kind of cater to specific like sexual trauma events, or is it like are there like variations of it, and how do you know which is for whom? Like, how does that process work?
Well, my process personally, like specifically with sexual alchemy, which has now just been a consolidation of the years of all of the different practices, because I truly see it as a holistic process. It has to be. So
Hmm.
there's so many dimensions of our being that's even beyond our body. And I go through the dimensions. I go through 12 dimensions, and I base this on ancient African science. And I use those 12 dimensions to move through the different parts of the body. And it is very personalized based on the person's own energetic constitution, but also as we start, as they're guided into themselves to the different layers and dimensions. Like, for example, when we reach the navel area, where they're going into the belly button, which is really powerful connective energy. We consider that energy to be intuition. Me is symbolized by the spider. She is the weaver. She's also the great grandmother spirit. So it's the thing that connects us to all things and to those to come after us and to those who came before us. So that's our relational energy. That energy, once we go into that space, it may require different modalities depending on the person because it's all about your relationships and your connection to others. And also depending on how you're expressing it, because everything operates on a spectrum. So it has to be very present with where the person is in their current life, in their relationships, and what their relationships are reflecting to them. And then that will determine what approach we take to process that energy, because it's a very emotional process, and our emotions are not necessarily logical or practical, and we kind of have to just
Mhm.
allow people to like have the space to feel safe enough to be vulnerable, to be fully honest in what all is coming up emotionally, and not judge it,
Right. I
and
love
then express it, which is, to me, it's the energy work. It's not something that I can coach or train someone else to do it, because it's what I'm here to do. It's just like my presence and the true, genuine embodiment of that non judgment and that grace, right? Like,
yeah.
just be, and to allow people to feel like you can just be, which is really rare. And that's why I truly have come into the space where I value just my energy itself and what it's able to support in other people. And I
I
think that that's what each person is here to do ultimately, that I'm actually helping them to unlock, is like how to fully be in your authentic frequency, so
yeah.
that just by being in your presence, you're already having the effect that you're meant to have in the world.
I absolutely love that. And as you're saying this, I'm like, I think you may have already answered the question. But what advice would you give anyone who is struggling to maybe come forth with the stories and share their personal stories and seek the support from you or another healing practitioner, like what advice would you give them, especially those who really struggle with shame, self-doubt, and the fear of, sharing their story?
Hmm.
Yeah.
Okay, that's a really great question. Um, the guidance that I offer is, if you're not ready to outwardly express what you experience
Hmm.
and whatever your sexual trauma has been or may continue to be, which is also something that creates a lot of shame. Like if you're actually in it still,
Hmm.
it's a different process than like having come through it and then having to turn around and like look back at it. So the the most important thing is to just face yourself. It's not, you don't have to face anyone but yourself,
Mm.
and witness it for yourself. And what those emotions are, the shame, the guilt, all of that pain is here to serve you. I think that that's really one of the things that a lot of the clinical um, mental health is missing, is like just the validation of the service. Like it's like, no, we have to get rid of this thing, or this thing is wrong, and
Right.
that's why it resists and it fights, because it wants to grip and hold you. It's energy, right? Whatever you run away from is going to chase you, and it's going
Wow.
to get bigger and more ferocious as you run away and you're getting more and more tired, because that's just how energy works. It's going to eventually reach you. There's nothing that you're really running away from but yourself.
Mm.
And that thing, that's that monster, that experience, whatever it is, it has something for you. And if you would just face yourself and just feel it, and allow yourself to be with the emotion without feeling that you have to drown in it, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think that that's a great way to begin, because it's a beautiful thing to have other people witness it, because it's like, it's, to me, it's exorcism. Quite literally, it's an energy that you are transform. I like to transform the energy, but you can also expel the energy. You can just release it. But the beautiful thing about transforming it is honoring it. It gives it dignity and it allows it to truly go. Whereas I feel like if you just expel energy, it has to go somewhere else. And
Mm-hmm.
it will.
Wow.
It will. And that's one of the things that I feel I have a spiritual responsibility of, as a high priestess, as someone who does ritual work, is to make sure that we are truly healing that energy so it's not recycling and continuing in other spaces and places. And, some people don't have any other way to conceptualize that other than, the ways that we've learned through different religions, whether that be demonology and thinking about these things as like demons and angels. But it's really energy. It's,
Yeah.
the things that make us feel heavy, and there are things that allow us to feel light.
Mm-hmm.
And neither is either good or bad, but that's very difficult for
Yeah.
us to really hold, like that truth.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that one good way to symbolically express this piece of wisdom and guidance is to think about the birds that are at the ocean and they're flying above the water, right? Because spiritually, water is the emotional realm, right? And those birds, they will fish into the water and get the fish and eat them. They
Yeah.
will hover over the water, and they will even dive into the water and maybe just sit and float on the water. And I think when it comes to sexual trauma, that's the disposition that brings the most ease,
Mm.
because you're honoring the water, but you're allowing your mind to balance your heart, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because emotions are never going to really be 100% accurate, and because they're informed by so many different things that are external,
Right.
and not everyone has the privilege or the opportunity to be in isolation and to just completely be in nature for enough time, like linear time, to even detoxify and release all of that influence. So it's important to allow the mind to serve too, and allow that air element, right, which is the mental, to balance that water. Even if you're someone who's like a Pisces and you're like all water, or Cancer, you're super emotional, this is still the best guidance that I can offer if you're not ready yet to share your story, is ease your way into that water.
Yeah.
You don't have to just dive in and go into the bottom of the ocean.
I love it.
So
You're speaking my
yeah,
language.
yeah, I do love that. So is there like a timeline that, that it typically takes this amount of time to go through this type of work and process, or is it very unique to one's
It,
experience?
it's not a matter of time, it's a
Yeah.
matter of movement.
Mm,
Mm,
So
love.
that's like my slogan. That's my mantra for navigating eternity. Navigating eternity is a holistic energy management medicine that I birthed. I had nurtured it for 8 years. I'm very proud of my baby. And it is a system to pretty much orient ourselves to natural cycles of time and not linear time.
mm,
And it just aligns us with the truth that even our original ways of measuring time using the sundials, it was all about our movement, the
Mm,
movement of our planet, and we have a circadian rhythm. All of us, both
mm,
males and females, have a circadian rhythm to flow with. And then those of us with wombs, we have our infradian rhythm. So we
yep.
have an additional clock. Those are the clocks that we actually want to orient ourselves to. So the process is based on our movement. You can move slow and get there quickly,
mhm.
and get there slowly. You can move fast and get there quickly. So it's really up to the person and the intensity that they want to approach the healing process with. For me, I am a deep diver. I'm a deep diver. I've learned to honor my energy and operate more like that bird that's just sitting in the water. But in terms of like the depth that I like to approach things, like I've gotten to a point where I don't want anything to sneak up on me. I don't want any shadow. Like it's just like, oh, something new. Oh, like it's even when I go into that space, like during eclipse cycles, twice a year when we go through eclipse cycles, naturally the energy field is pulling on us to elevate and to raise
Mm,
up those things that are in the depths that we don't want to feel, right? Our shadow elements start to come up. And even during those spaces now, for me, I'm very like familiar with it. Yes, it'll still have a density to it, but that's how I like to function. I like to be in the presence and see the beauty of the most grotesque and ugly aspects of life.
In this also, I have another question. I know so many questions. How do you address shame? Because I know this is a topic that typically would make you feel a sense of shame, blame.
yeah.
Um, how do you address those feelings?
I think the best way to address those feelings is to embrace them.
Mm,
Shame is a really tricky one because it hides really well.
Yeah,
It
it
hides
does.
really, really well.
Yeah,
And our ego does a great job to make sure that we can survive and keep moving through life and do everything we need to do, which is really great. And thanks for its service.
right.
However, it does not support us in identifying shame. So once you're able to actually identify shame and allow the shame to surface, that's half the battle. That's like
mm,
celebrate. Like you could pop a bottle on that. Knowing that the shame is there is very, very difficult. So once the shame is there, I feel the best way to approach it is to be with the shame and allow yourself to actually feel it, because with shame comes change.
Yes.
mm,
And Because otherwise, if you don't actually feel the shame, there really is no emotional incentive
Oh,
to transform
Yeah.
whatever it is that's causing that discomfort. So it's important to see the necessity of shame and allow it to exhaust itself. And that's not just with shame, any of the difficult emotions. The best way I feel to approach them is to exhaust them,
mm,
allow them to express themselves. And it's a delicate process for me personally, working with myself and with others, because you have to really be in alignment with what's natural for you in terms of like what's your emotional disposition, what exactly are you processing. Is it abortion? Um is it molestation, rape?
right.
These are different experiences that create a different energy signature and imprint on you. And that imprint is spiritual, it's psychological, it's emotional, it's physical. So you have to be dynamic in your approach. It's just about allowing yourself to listen to like the little details. The divinity is in the details of how your life is guiding you. And
Mhm.
again, if your life aligns you with someone like myself who's going to support you in that process, then you can trust also that um, dynamic capacity exists in that person, because you really do have to look at it at 360 degrees. It's not just like face value. This is how we do it.
Yeah.
It's going to be different every time and for everyone. And it can be the same trauma and it can still express itself and go through a completely different process.
Wow.
Oh my gosh. Wow. Every word that you speak, I feel like holds so much love and intention. And I really appreciate just the way that you expressed and articulated all of your thoughts. And true, are you a Gemini? Is that what you said you are?
Yeah.
Yes.
It's-
I'm like, there will probably have to be a part two. I'm so curious about the healing modalities that you mentioned. I'm so curious about like your own personal journey. But because, we have a limited time today, I'll have to ask you some questions through email and maybe we can have a part two, if that's okay.
I'm
And
open.
I'm sure we'll have viewers ask questions too, just based on our short time together. But I just want to thank you for just being so vulnerable and loving and open with how you shared today.
Yeah, thank you. It's my pleasure.
Yeah, absolutely. Before we go, I do want to pick your brain
Oh,
on
yes.
what are your personal self care practices. Right, we
Yes.
like to share with our community as well, because I know coming from you, you probably have the best self care practices that
I know
I'm
you
also
like
going to teach
glow.
on to.
Yes, you literally are like glowing right now. So I'm like,
Yeah.
what is this?
Yeah,
Meditation. What
it's
is
so
it?
yeah, I'm on the like incline, or like when you have to like contract in and then you start coming back out, but you're not fully expanded past where you were when you came in.
Mm-hmm.
The lungs were breathing, everything, the tides of the ocean, and I'm coming back out. So it feels really great, and I'm thankful that you expressed that,
Yeah.
because I have been going through my own contraction of um yeah, embracing my power and allowing it to just like, you know.
Well, you know what? Jupiter is in Gemini, and it's Gemini season. So, my girl, you are just expanding all over the place for the next year.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. So I'm thankful for that. And then as far as my self-care practices, I have many. I but I think the most important thing is listening, listening to myself.
Mm.
That's
Wow.
one of the most important things for me is because sometimes that self-care is sleeping in and
Mm.
doing it unapologetically and not
Yes.
feeling like you need to do anything. Because sometimes I notice with a lot of us, we feel like when we're not doing our self-care practice, that we're not caring for ourselves because
Yeah.
we think we have to be doing something.
Yeah.
So sometimes my self-care is not doing. And most of the time I'll say, because I do a lot. So that's a big thing for me, is just listening, being still, starting the day with stillness, 11 minutes at least of stillness, gratitude. Gratitude is a it's the fuel for all of our ships. So
Yes.
gratitude, just being grateful and thankful for my challenges, for every single person that reflects me in my life, whether those are difficult relationships or not. But really meeting everything, especially the things that we feel are like against us, recognizing their beauty and that they're for us. So finding that gratitude is a big part of my self-care practice. Journaling, faux show,
Yes, yes,
singing.
yes, yes.
I love singing and writing music. That's a huge thing for me. Poetry, any art. I love to paint, hand paint, with my hands. Every single day, I begin the day. For me personally, I open the way. I do chanting,
Mhm.
um, in all of the 7 directions, the 4 cardinal directions: above, below, and within, sending out just life, healing, and love all
Yeah.
across all directions. And then I do my prayer and I do my declarations.
Mm.
Declarations are what I consider to be like a revolved expression of affirmations. That's a
Mhm.
huge part of my practice. It's been consistently in the past decade. That probably has been the most transformative aspect of my self-care. Every time I go through a major phase of development in my life, I write a declaration. And it's just an expression of whatever that is, um, that I've moved through. So, like, if it's financially, I am financially, economically, emotionally, and physically free to live and thrive as abundantly as I choose to see. I create the reality that I envision. So, at this point in my journey, I have 64. I began with just 3. If you don't have any affirmations, you could start with 3:
Wow.
mind, body, spirit. Write those out. I've gotten to the point where like I had them on flashcards, then I memorized them, I recorded
Ooh,
them, I listened to them. Like that's been a huge part of my self-care.
I love that. You just inspired me to do some affirmations.
Yeah, I love the affirmations. And
Yes.
and typically we don't think about that as self-care, but that is amazing. It's a great reminder. So where can we join your movement, take part in your services and all the things? Give us all of your handles.
Okay.
And the Palo Santo shop.
Yes. Okay. So first, I'm the mother of Tehuti Ma'at, which is like the umbrella institution of all the other cooperatives that I'm a
Mhm.
part of. So Tehuti Ma'at stands for Tehuti, which is the mind. Tehuti is associated with Gemini, and Ma'at is the heart and is associated with Libra, the scales.
Mm.
So it literally is the expression of, in the ancient context, the best way that we could interpret it, you would need many words, but essentially universal law and cosmic order. It's accountability and integrity, right?
Mhm.
Like it's balancing both the masculine and feminine. In all of the tradition, there's always a balance in a male and a female in terms of like the personification of the forces of nature.
Mhm.
So that's what it means. It's our umbrella of everything that we're creating as a co op. It's really designed to develop revolutionary cooperative institutions in the areas of healing, art, and education. So you can find us on Instagram
Okay.
at Tehuti Ma'at. You can also go to tehutimaat.org if you want to learn more about the community service work, our programs, and the different cooperatives that we're developing. One of those cooperatives is the one that I mentioned earlier, Coins and Karis. And
Yes.
Coins and Karis is a spiritual marketplace. It's our goal is to bring integrity back to the marketplace because
Mhm.
of the commodification of spirituality, really finding a way to still allow people to have access to really powerful, um, artistic and healing tools, right? So like I told you, like the Palo Santo, for example, I've been getting things from back home in Cabo Verde and using that, like the clays that we have, so people can use body clays. So just different, there's different healing tools that are on that marketplace. So that's one way people can support things. If you also want to do book a consultation or do spiritual coaching with me, that is also available on that space. I did just create a personal Instagram. So I also invite people to follow me on there because I'll be sharing more of my personal services and my journey and my story on that platform. And it's at She's Too Deep.
Love that.
SHETOODEEP. So you
Very
can follow me on there. And I have a YouTube channel also, which is at Tehuti Ma'at World, if you
mm-hmm.
use the YouTube handle. So that's our YouTube channel where we do different shows. And we have our retreat coming up in February. So the sexual alchemy retreat is specifically around healing sexual trauma. It's a 7-day retreat around the energy of carnival, where most of the sexual energy is being stirred
Mm-hmm.
up. So that's where I first birthed this physical component of being able to work with people this past February. So I did have a website for that, which is sexualalchemy.com. And yeah, if people are interested in working with me, I also do oracle readings that are available on Coins and Caris. And the best way is just to connect. I'm not like a big social media girl. I'm trying to share myself more virtually. So that's why I was so thankful for this opportunity. And I really appreciate you guys giving me the space to share and connect.
Yes, it
Thank
has been
you.
our pleasure to have you on. And
Mhm.
do connect with Nef. She's amazing. Whatever you need, whatever services that your spirit is calling you to do, please do reach out to her. Thank you again so much for having
Yeah.
for allowing us to be in conversation with you today. It was so amazing, and we definitely want more.
Yeah. Part
um,
two.
Here.
yes, part two soon. So to our viewers, our listeners everywhere, we are sending you all so much love. Please join our community on Instagram at Women's Wellness Podcast. It's always so lovely to connect with all of you. Until the next time, sending you all so much love.
So much love.